Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Come on, get louder, get louder. Come on. Howdy, how y'all doing? Great? Okay, let's get this program started. Paul Pelland. It's a pleasure of mine to announce or introduce Paul Pelland. He's a former top 10 motorcycle endurance competitor from New Hampshire who now travels the country raising awareness and funds for multiple sclerosis. His goal is to document 1 million miles by motorcycle while sharing his inspirational story at hundreds of MS patient programs and delivering keynote address and seminars for all types of audiences. You can follow Long Haul Paul on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. Despite living with MS himself, over the last 7 years, he's ridden over 400,000 miles. You should all applaud that one, all right? He has set 3 world records and raised over $180,000 for charity. Let's welcome Paul Pelland.
You know, riding a motorcycle to me is, it's like breathing. I think I started riding motorcycles when I was 21. I had been on a few of my relatives' dirt bikes years before, but it was, my first motorcycle was actually somebody owed me some money, and instead of paying me 50 bucks, they traded me a beat up old Honda CB 554, actually, that hadn't run in 15 or 20 years. I cleaned it all up, got it running, and jumped on it and went off down the street. I got the bug, and within a year or so, I bought another bike and another one. I've had a lot of rough times in my life. I've always seemed to pull through. Sometimes I don't always take the easiest path, and a lot of people tell me what I'm doing is crazy or never work, but learning to believe in myself and to trust myself has gotten me through some of the tough times. One of the things that I've realized in the past 5 years that I've been riding is I believe my health is actually improving. Finding something that I love to do and making it more important than my disease is actually part of my therapy. Because I'm happy, because I'm passionate, because I'm doing what I love, it's putting my disease at bay. It was about 5 or 6 years ago, I was at a patient event and I heard a doctor say, a cure for MS was 1 million miles away. And it got me thinking, 1 million miles? Well, it's far, but it's possible. And that's when I decided to document riding a motorcycle 1 million miles for MS. My name is Paul Pelland. I go by Long Haul Paul. I travel the country as a patient advocate, speaking to groups that are affected by multiple sclerosis, hopefully trying to inspire them to find something that they love to do in life and to make it more important than their disease.
I would like to share today a little bit about my motorcycle background, my disease, MS, and finally some basic principles for riding a motorcycle that I think we can all use to help us ride through the challenges of life. Next year, I will be celebrating 15 years of living with multiple sclerosis. And yes, I said celebrate, because it has been 15 years with no real signs of disease progression. Because of changes that I've made in my lifestyle, I also feel healthier now than before I was diagnosed. I'm also celebrating because I've decided that multiple sclerosis is not going to control my life or define who I am, ever. In fact, I'm using my MS to return to a forgotten passion while raising awareness and funds for a cure. I'm celebrating having MS as a positive in my life, quite frankly, because it isn't going away, and being okay with it is a hell of a lot better than the alternative feelings. Now, I'm not going to say I don't have days where I don't feel sad, angry, fearful, or depressed about having MS, or those days when my symptoms really get the best of me. I'm just choosing to concentrate my thoughts and energy on some of the good things that having MS has brought me. Like today's event. Good and free food, right? Some new friends, maybe a few old friends, people I've met last week. Maybe dessert, who knows? If I didn't have MS, I wouldn't be here right now. And if I didn't have MS, I'd probably be dragging some dead animal out of the freezer and jamming it in the microwave. But I'm not. I'm here with you at today's event. You see how this could work? Works for me. My course of the disease has been quite manageable compared to some. And I know not everybody's MS the same, but having multiple sclerosis should never be on a list of how we see or describe ourselves. MS is certainly not who I am, and MS is certainly not who you are. If you look multiple sclerosis up in the dictionary, I guarantee you won't see my picture. So make sure your picture never makes it there either. All right? Deal? I'm a man, I'm a husband, I'm a father, a grandfather, and I'm an avid motorcyclist. As you know, this disease, symptoms, and its progression is different in every single patient. And in my case, the majority of my MS symptoms have been cognitive. Short-term memory loss, mental fatigue, impaired planning, short-term memory loss, multitasking, decision-making, and short-term memory loss. Despite the hours and hours that I've spent preparing today's presentation, I honestly have no idea, except I just saw it, what slide comes next. I also have some weakness, loss of dexterity in my hands, some numbness, tingling, burning sensations, as well as some bladder issues. Unlike the rest of the speakers that you'll hear today, I'm not an MS expert, but as an avid motorcyclist who now travels exclusively by motorcycle across the country, I've found a way to navigate around the potholes in my life. And by pursuing my passion, I was able to discover my life's purpose. Getting diagnosed with relapsing, remitting multiple sclerosis certainly made me feel like I was on a dead-end street. But learning to apply some principles for properly riding a motorcycle, I was able to see how MS was just another part of my life's adventure. And I learned how to keep it from blocking my road to happiness. I've been riding motorcycles for 30 years. I ride motorcycles like most people drive cars. I commute, I travel, I go shopping with my bike. I've ridden in all of the lower 48 states, Mexico, and Canada. Riding a motorcycle to me is as natural as breathing. I found the therapy of riding long distances a good way to escape from a bad marriage, a boggled divorce, and what became a monstrous 10-year custody ordeal. Pain, anger, anxiety, fear, all went away the more hours and miles I rode. When I ride my motorcycle today, I don't have MS. By 2003, I had become one of the top long-distance motorcycle riders in the country, and I was at the pinnacle of my riding career. I was selected to ride in the world's toughest motorcycle competition called the Iron Butt Rally. And although I managed a top 10 finish in the 11-day, 11,000-mile event, something happened during that rally that would forever alter the course of my life. I don't remember arriving at the Midway Checkpoint Hotel, but I must have looked like hell because I was ordered by the rally staff to skip the mandatory riders meeting and go immediately to my hotel room. They did manage to tell me, though, at that time I was currently in first place in the points. I had prearranged to share a room with a fellow New Hampshire rider. The next morning, something was wrong with me that sleep didn't fix. Was it the heat? Was it fatigue? Whatever the reason, I was also confused, disorientated, and I was unable to plan a good route for the next leg of the event. Later that morning, I came across an accident, and although the motorcycle was partially upside down, I thought I recognized it. So I stopped, and I went over to the rider who was being helped by EMTs. They asked me if I knew who he was, and I said yes. But as I looked at the rider's face, I had no idea what his name was. I was haunted for years by the fact I could not remember the rider's name and the man that I had shared a hotel room with the night before. After finishing the event, my arm weakness and cognitive symptoms continued, and I eventually saw a neurologist who did a few office tests and said he was pretty sure I just had, and I quote, this was my first diagnosis, he said I had crap for brains. But, he added, let's run a few more tests to rule out any bad stuff. When he later told me that my MRI scan was remarkable, I thought I was probably going to get a lollipop or maybe a watermelon-scented sticker. Apparently, remarkable means something totally different in med school. They found 5 lesions in my brain. Unfortunately, the jokes were over, and we would not be rolling out the bad stuff. I retired from competing, I sold my bikes, and I gave up riding altogether. I tossed away my dreams, my plans for the future. I sold my business, and I prepared for the absolute worst. Well, the worst I had imagined never showed up, so I stopped waiting for it. I have been happily married for most of the past 13 years. My kids have grown up and moved away. I'm still able to work, and I've not had a major disabling attack for the past 15 years. 7 years ago, I realized, although I may never be able to compete in endurance rallies, I could still ride a motorcycle across the country, and that I'd thrown in the towel a bit too early on a sport that I really, really loved. In just a few months, my entire life's road was recalculated, and I'm now living out a great adventure, documenting 1 million miles by motorcycle, raising awareness and funds, while trying to encourage others with MS to rediscover or find a new path as well. Rediscovering long-distance riding and making it a central part of my life has created a wonderful and positive experience for me, opening up doors like writing and speaking, abilities I never knew I had. So I would like to share with you the 4 rules for riding a motorcycle that could also be used to navigate life with or without MS. 4 simple words: learn, look, lean, and live. Before hopping on a new motorcycle, it's extremely important for me to learn about the machine, how it works, and how to take care of it. I need to learn the bike's limits as well as my own. It's equally important to constantly improve my abilities by taking refresher courses and learning from more experienced riders. I think we can learn about MS the same way, right? What it is, how it affects our own bodies, and what to do about slowing it down. Multiple sclerosis is a puzzle that never gets finished. So it's important to find a great MS specialist who can teach and inform us about our own individual disease and symptoms. I think it's also important to attend informational events like this one. These programs are also a great way to meet and speak to others, because collectively we are all a team of experts, all traveling down the same MS road. I learn something new every time I attend one of these events, and that's why I love coming. How many of you have learned something new from coming to one of these events versus your 15 minutes of time with your neurologist? Look where you want to go is the next rule. When riding a motorcycle, I have to look in the direction I want to travel. Look as far down the road as I can see, and look around or beyond the hazards in the road to avoid hitting them. If I look directly at something in the road, my bike will veer right towards it, and guess what? Hit it. Yeah. It's no secret that living with multiple sclerosis can also be an obstacle in life's road, right? Appearing to block the road to happiness that we were traveling down. Some days, the obstacle is merely a dead squirrel. Other days, it's a giant, gaping pothole. But no matter what is in the way, the solution can be the same. Look beyond the MS. Look past the symptoms. Keep moving down that road. And by keeping our eyes on our goals and what makes us happy, we eventually will get to where we want to go. The third rule is lean. A moving motorcycle can only change direction by leaning. If the bike doesn't lean into a turn, it will run right off the road and crash. Exactly. To initiate a lean, I have to push on the handlebar grip in the direction I want to go, and the bike follows. Everybody knows navigating life with MS can bring us to many forks in the road, right? And when we arrive at these crossroads, we need to act. We need to push on that handlebar, leaning hard towards the new path. Because without that push, all the wishing and hoping in the universe won't help us change direction. I don't know about you, but I'm not a great fan of crashing. So I think it's important to not let MS define who we are or control our life's road. The last rule to motorcycle success is live. And I don't mean just sucking oxygen. Riding a motorcycle involves risks. It's not a secret that riders have a greater risk of injury should we be involved in a collision. But riders accept these higher risks in exchange for rewards of freedom, adventure, and the excitement and pleasure that we get from riding. I ride a motorcycle not because I have a death wish. I ride a motorcycle because I have a wish to live. The same can be true when living life with a disease that has so many unknowns. It can be risky to start a new activity, start a family, a new career, plan for vacation or retirement. But unless we take these risks, we may never achieve the rewards of happiness and success that every one of us deserves to experience. So, maybe it's time to make that new recipe, to wear those high heels again, join that bowling league, buy that convertible, plan that fishing trip, jump out of that airplane, or run for office. Because having an unpredictable disease shouldn't mean we have to play it safe or give up. Maybe it gives us special permission to learn, to look, to lean, and most of all, to live. In 2001, I didn't yet have any multiple sclerosis symptoms, but I rode a motorcycle that did. And it was while riding in an 11-day endurance competition, thumping along a lonely Wyoming highway at a top speed of 25 miles an hour on a poor excuse for a motorcycle, that I almost gave up at one of the greatest crossroads of my life. Chugging along, limping to the next town, the drone of the one working cylinder began to take on a very curious verse. Go home, go home, go home, go home, go home, go home. Not a soul on earth gave me a shot of finishing that event, including the bike's manufacturer. And after a week of breakdown after breakdown after breakdown, the engine's taunting almost convinced me that they were right. But from somewhere deep within, I suddenly was overcome with this surge of energy. And I stood up on the foot pegs, I opened up my helmet visor, and I screamed at the top of my lungs, I will not give up, and I will not go home. And I etched this statement across my windshield with a grease pencil. And I vowed no matter what, I was going to finish that event. And without a second doubt, I knew where I needed to go. I looked beyond the problem. I leaned hard into the wind, and I eventually dragged myself across the finish line. I will forever be grateful for taking the risk. The impossible 1,000,000-to-1 odds of finishing that event on such an unreliable, antiquated motorcycle. That ride, that day, that moment helped shape who I am and continues to give me strength to believe in myself in the most difficult and trying times. Inside every one of us here today is that same power and ability to overcome our MS obstacles and to continue on a path towards a wonderful and fulfilling life. What I was able to learn from this story, and I hope you can as well, is that no matter how big the hill, there's always a way over it or around it. You just may need to use your heart, your mind, and a grease pencil to get you over it. 7 years ago, I made my MS diagnosis public, and I began a fantastic adventure, traveling by motorcycle every day possible, trying to encourage others with challenges in life to recalculate their path as well. My goal is to officially document 1,000,000 miles as an advocate, and my 1,000,000-mile journey is fueled by having MS. My mission statement is pretty simple. I once was told a cure for multiple sclerosis was 1,000,000 miles away, so I figured I would just go get it and bring it back. So I'm out there getting it. having a brain riddled with holes, having a physical or mental challenge, or riding a piece of crap motorcycle should never confine or define who we are. I know we all have different MS symptoms, and my course of the disease has been quite manageable compared to some. I don't expect everyone in this room to run out and buy a motorcycle and ride it all over creation. But I do know some of you may have been passionate about something at some time, and maybe that passion was put aside after getting diagnosed. So I challenge you to revisit that activity or find a related activity. Look at it from a whole new angle. Get some help from assistive technology or just a different set of eyes. And I bet you might just see a brand new path to something you can be excited about as well. There are millions of miles of roads on this earth, each and every one of them intersected with crossroads, representing different paths. And therefore, not all of us are supposed to take the fastest route. Slow down, recalculate, detour, wander, or shift, because a roundabout can still get you to your goal. And believe me, sometimes that ride, that journey, that side trip adventure will become much more important than your destination. Well, thank you very much. If anybody wants to follow me or track me, you can find me on social media, Long Haul Paul, one word. I post a lot of videos and pictures from the road, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook. So I like to say subscribe, like, share, follow, get the heck out of the way, because I'm on a mission, chasing the cure.
Round of applause, yeah. Does anybody have any questions for Paul? Any questions out there at all about his journeys? I'll be right there. Thank you very much.
I'm a car guy, and I'm curious what type of motorcycle you're using.
A very dirty one. I'm riding a Yamaha. Yamaha last year actually donated a bike to me after I wore out two of their bikes. I'm pretty rough on my machines, and Yamaha, when I first started this 7 years ago, I thought I could write a letter to the manufacturers and they'd all be throwing motorcycles at me. That's not how it works. Nobody even believed I was going to do what I said. So the first bike that I bought, I did a lot of research, and Yamaha had a really good reputation, durability and reliability. My bike has to start every single day. I can't be in the shop. I'm not very good about following maintenance schedules and things like that. So I wanted a bike that I could drive like a Toyota Corolla and just beat the snot out of it. So the first Yamaha I had, I put 172,000 miles on it, and it was actually never washed or serviced. I just changed the oil and tires and just rode it. So,
what did you ride on the Endurance?
So in the when I was doing events, I rode BMWs mostly. I had a lot of BMWs. At the time, they were the cat's meow for the long distance endurance stuff. I still like BMWs. They're just really expensive for what I do. Bikes only last me about 2 years at the most right now. When I did the ride that I talked about in the story, the first Iron Butt Rally, I didn't get in on the first draw, so I knew that they would allow riders in on antiques or very unique motorcycles. So I entered and finished on the Russian URAL, which, if you know what that is, it's about the worst possible designed machine you could find on the earth. Not something you would enter an endurance competition with.
What was the CCs of that Yamaha?
Well, I went through 3 engines, so some of them were 650s and some were 750s. I blew 2 engines in 11 days.
All right. How often do you have to change tires?
When I'm traveling, I mean, it can be every 4 or 5 weeks I'm putting new tires on the bike. Motorcycle tires are very soft to give good traction, so I get about 10,000 miles out of the rear tire. So 2 weeks ago, I was out in Los Angeles, and I had gone out to Los Angeles and back. I had done a couple of small trips, so I just put a tire on 4 weeks ago, and then I just put a tire on what's today, Saturday? Monday or Tuesday. I put a tire on Tuesday. So I'm at the tire place quite often. About 12 sets of tires a year I'm going through.
Anybody else? Great.
And Bridgestone, if you want to know what tires I use, they're Bridgestone. Bridgestone's one of my sponsors.
So if I heard you correctly, well, first of all, I really appreciate your story. Found it very inspiring. And if I heard you correctly, you've been diagnosed for 15 years now, or you're coming up on that anniversary. And you said it was about 7 years ago you went public with your diagnosis. I was just wondering what went into your decision to go public about it.
Sure. So my decision to go public was the first few years I really expected the worst, and I made some changes in my life and things, and but when I realized that I was doing okay, and for me anyway, it wasn't going to be so bad, and I had this urge to try to help people, to do something. What can I do? And I had gone to a patient event where I had heard Wendy Booker speak. I don't know if you know Wendy Booker, but Wendy Booker is a patient advocate, and she had climbed, I think, 6 of the 7 summits with MS. And she has an incredible story, and I had heard her speak, and I just really felt something. And I felt like, geez, I wish I could do something like that. I wish I could make other people feel the way she made me feel. And but I don't do anything. I don't climb mountains. I don't run marathons. I don't do anything except ride a motorcycle. And then I started to think about how I could use riding to help MS. At first, I just was going to try to do a big fundraiser. And then somebody said, "That's great. What are you going to do the next year and the year after that?" And so I kind of decided I needed a plan. And so I just decided I would ride 1 million miles. I mean, I know it's possible. I have friends that have done 1 million miles journey on motorcycles and documenting it. And I just thought that, I could just start from zero and try to dedicate every mile on my bike going to MS events or motorcycle events where I also present and talk about MS and things like that to motorcycle people all over the United States. And so that's kind of how it started. It was just, I wanted to do something, give back. And, the motorcycle community, the long distance people, they had not heard from me in 7 years. They thought I was in prison or something. But they've welcomed me back, and they've really stood behind me and helped support I do a lot of fundraising, motorcycle related fundraising. If you go on my website, you can find all the different things that I do. Some silly world records. I try to do 1 or 2 silly things a year to get people's interest. So the motorcycle industry has really gotten behind me and helped support me in many, many ways, which has been great. So, it's really all been positive for me coming out and telling people about it. And I really get so much out of speaking to people, and it's an incredible way to get out there. I'm doing what I love. I'm helping people. I don't make any money, but I'm sure having fun.
By the way, Paul raises money eating tarantulas. Yes.
Eating tarantulas.
Yes, eating tarantulas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I do whatever it takes.
Right. And by the way, he's looking for a way to ride his motorcycle to Hawaii. He's planning on building a bridge soon, okay? All right, next question's over here.
Okay, I'm just guessing that with MS, heat and vertigo isn't a big issue with you on the motorcycle?
Not vertigo, but heat is. And I've done a lot of actually product testing for different companies building like air conditioning systems and things. I've actually was part of a company that brought a product to market that you plug in, and it's no ice or anything like that. You just plug in and wear it. Unfortunately, that company went out of business, but I'm always looking for the next best thing. But I do have to be very careful with the heat, especially because most of my issues are cognitive. Realizing that I'm overheating and I'm not making good decisions on the bike, or sometimes I'll come to a stop sign and go, geez, I know I'm supposed to do something with my feet when I come to a stop. And that's when I realize I need to get off the road and go get a hotel room or stick my head in an ice bucket in front of the gas station for an hour to cool off. But yeah, I do have to watch the heat. That's one of the main things. Heat and fatigue are tough for me.
What do you do at night?
Sleep. What's the question? No.
Do you stop at hotels? Do you?
I do. Yeah. I most of my, like, I'm going to leave. Well, I am flying home and then flying back here to get my bike tomorrow. But Monday, it's going to rain Monday, the whole East Coast, and I'm driving from here to New Hampshire Monday, which is 1,000 miles. It'll take me in the rain about 16 hours. So when I ride a day like that, I don't want to be setting up a tent or looking for firewood. I want a hotel room or stay at somebody's house or be home. So I'll stay in hotels. I spend, last year probably 150 nights in hotels when I stop, because my days are very, very long on the bike.
Go careful in that rain.
Oh yeah.
So the other day he rode to Columbus through the snow, and he was following the snow plows. He's got this GoPro, and he's got a video record these snow plows working in front of him. All right, any other questions? Anybody? If not, let's thank Paul again.